Every day, life presents us with an infinite number of choices. Some are monumental, like choosing a career path or ending a relationship, while others seem inconsequential, such as deciding whether to snooze the alarm or make the bed. Yet, it is the sum of these daily choices, both big and small, that ultimately determine the direction and quality of our lives. The idea that your life reflects your choices is not just a motivational catchphrase, it's a fundamental truth that governs our journey. Our current circumstances are, to a large extent, the result of the decisions we've made. Where we live, who we associate with, what we do for work, how we treat our bodies, and how we spend our time, these are all products of past choices. This realization can be both empowering and sobering. Empowering because it suggests we have the ability to shape our future. Sobering because it also implies we are responsible for the outcomes we're experiencing right now, whether we like them or not. The power of choice is a gift, but it's also a responsibility. It means that we are not merely at the mercy of our circumstances, upbringing, or environment. While those elements certainly influence us, they do not define us. We are defined by how we respond to them. Two people can come from the same background and face the same adversity, yet make entirely different choices and lead completely different lives. It's not the circumstances that shape them, it's the decisions they make in response to those circumstances. Often people feel stuck because they underestimate the cumulative power of small choices. A single donut doesn't make you unhealthy, just like one workout doesn't make you fit. But when small decisions are made consistently, over days, weeks, months, they create momentum. That momentum builds habits, and those habits build outcomes. A choice repeated enough times becomes a routine, and a routine practiced long enough becomes a lifestyle. Over time, that lifestyle defines who you are and what you experience. This principle applies across all areas of life. Financially, choosing to spend rather than save, or ignoring debt rather than addressing it, builds a trajectory. In relationships, choosing not to communicate, to hold grudges, or to take loved ones for granted sets a tone that compounds over time. Spiritually and emotionally, choosing bitterness over forgiveness or apathy over engagement creates an internal environment that either frees you or traps you. But recognizing the power of your choices doesn't mean that you will always choose perfectly. No one does. The key lies not in being flawless, but in being intentional. It's about cultivating the awareness that every decision matters, and that even a small change in direction today can alter your destination years from now. Think of life like a ship on the open sea. A 1-degree shift in the wheel may seem trivial in the moment, but over miles and miles of travel, it completely changes your course. Living with intentionality requires reflection and self-honesty. It demands that you pause and ask yourself questions like, is this choice aligning with the person I want to become? Is this action helping or hurting my future? Am I acting out of fear, comfort, or purpose? These questions guide us to make decisions, not just based on what feels good in the moment, but on what builds a meaningful life. Another layer of the power of choice is learning to take ownership. Too often, people defer responsibility with phrases like, I had no choice, or that's just how things are. While some things are genuinely out of our control, most outcomes have roots in choices we've made, choices we were sometimes unwilling to fully confront. Blame might provide temporary relief, but it also robs us of agency. Ownership, on the other hand, restores our power. When you take full responsibility for your decisions, you reclaim the ability to change your situation. It's important to remember that difficult choices are often the ones that matter most. The easy choice is usually the one that maintains the status quo, feeds short-term gratification, or avoids conflict. The hard choice typically requires courage, discipline, and foresight. Whether it's choosing to stay consistent with a workout, routine, having a hard conversation, walking away from a toxic relationship, or starting over in a new direction, the more difficult option is often the one that leads to real growth. Fear often clouds our ability to make bold choices. We fear failure, rejection, discomfort, or uncertainty. But fear is a poor guide. It wants you to stay where it's safe, even if that place is unfulfilling. The most meaningful lives are built not by avoiding fear, but by choosing in spite of it. You don't need to be fearless, you just need to be brave enough to choose your values over your fears. In today's fast-paced world, distractions can also dilute the quality of our decisions. We are constantly bombarded by noise, notifications, opinions, pressures to conform. If we are not careful, we start making choices based on trends, convenience, or what others expect of us. True power lies in slowing down, tuning in to your inner compass, and making decisions from a place of clarity. Mindfulness plays a crucial role here. When you're present, you're able to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, between impulse and intention. Ultimately, living a life of impact and fulfillment comes down to consistently making choices that reflect your deepest values and vision. It's about becoming the kind of person who aligns action with purpose. Every day is another opportunity to choose the life you want, even if just by a small step. There is no single choice that will magically create success or happiness. Rather, it is the act of choosing wisely, again and again, that creates a life worth living. So when you find yourself at a crossroads, no matter how insignificant it may seem, remember that every decision is a chance to shape your destiny. Your choices are your voice. They speak into the world who you are and what you stand for. They define your story, one page at a time. Every day we are faced with choices. Some seem small and insignificant, while others feel monumental. But whether minor or major, each decision we make contributes to the architecture of our lives. Our present situation is not merely the result of chance, circumstances, or the actions of others. It is the cumulative effect of our choices. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed, we are shaping our destiny one decision at a time. The most empowering truth is that the power to choose lies within us. It does not belong to society, our upbringing, or our past. Regardless of what has happened before, each person holds the capacity to steer their life in a new direction through intentional choices. This awareness alone is life-altering. It means we are not victims of circumstance, we are architects of change. What often keeps people stuck is the belief that they don't have options, that their path is already predetermined by their environment or past failures. But this is a lie that keeps dreams buried and potential locked away. Even in the most difficult of situations, there is always a choice to respond differently, to think differently, to act differently. It's not always easy and it's rarely convenient, but the option to choose is ever present. Choices are powerful because they are the beginning of every transformation. Every goal reached, every breakthrough achieved, and every new chapter written begins with a single choice. It starts with choosing to show up, choosing to keep going, choosing to believe that something better is possible. No external force is as potent as a human being who has made a committed decision. Once a person truly decides to change, the universe often seems to rearrange itself to support that shift. Opportunities appear, connections emerge, and momentum builds. But none of that happens without that initial spark, the decision. Often, people wait for the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, or the perfect plan before making a move. But perfection is a myth. Waiting for conditions to be just right often leads to a lifetime of waiting. The truth is, decisive people create conditions. They don't wait for life to hand them the ideal moment. They step forward in faith, knowing that clarity comes from action. Each step forward opens up more options. Each yes or no becomes a signal to the world and to oneself about what matters, what is non-negotiable, and what one is willing to sacrifice for growth. There's also the matter of responsibility. The moment you realize your choices are responsible for your outcomes, you can no longer shift blame. That might sound intimidating, but it's actually liberating. If choices have brought you to where you are, then different choices can take you somewhere new. You don't have to stay stuck. You're not sentenced to repeat the past. You can choose differently, starting now. And with each conscious decision, you reclaim more control over your life. Many people underestimate the power of small decisions. They think change requires some grand gesture, a dramatic overhaul. But often it's the simple choices made consistently over time that generate the most profound results. Choosing to get up a bit earlier, choosing to read instead of scroll, choosing to speak life instead of negativity. These may not seem monumental in the moment, but compounded over weeks, months, and years, they shift the trajectory of a life entirely. Every choice sends a message to your future self. It says, "I'm preparing you for something greater," or "I'm settling for less." The future is not some distant reality we stumble into. It is a direct result of what we do today. So the question becomes, what kind of future are your current choices building? Are they leading you toward growth, purpose, and fulfillment? Or are they keeping you comfortable and complacent? It's also important to acknowledge that making powerful choices often requires courage. Choosing to grow means facing discomfort. Choosing integrity means resisting temptation. Choosing vision means ignoring distractions. The right choice is rarely the easiest one, but every time you make that hard choice, you strengthen your character and affirm your commitment to your highest self. Over time, these difficult decisions become habits, and those habits become the new foundation for how you live and lead. One of the most transformative choices a person can make is to stop living by default and start living by design. Instead of reacting to life, you begin to respond with intention. You stop drifting with the current and start steering your own course. It doesn't mean everything will go smoothly. Life will still present setbacks and storms. But when you know you're choosing your path, even the struggles feel purposeful. Even the failures carry lessons that refine and prepare you for greater success. There is a point where choosing becomes a lifestyle. You no longer wait for motivation or external validation. You no longer ask for permission. You decide, daily, to align your actions with your values and your vision. And the beauty of this is that you begin to trust yourself more deeply. Each choice becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. You stop wondering if you have what it takes and start proving it to yourself through your consistency. Choice is the birthplace of change. It is where freedom begins. Not the kind of freedom that's given or granted, but the kind that is earned through responsibility, through effort, and through intention. People who understand the power of their choices don't live passively. They rise each day with a sense of agency and purpose. They recognize that while they cannot control everything that happens to them, they can always control how they respond. And in that response is the seed of transformation. Ultimately, every choice is a declaration. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is the life I'm committed to building. When a person lives from that place, when they own their decisions, big and small, they tap into a level of power and clarity that sets them apart. They stop being merely reactive participants in life and become active creators of their future. That is the real power of choice. It is not just about changing direction. It's about reclaiming ownership of your life, one decision at a time. You don't arrive at greatness by accident. Every single day presents you with a crossroads, a moment where you can decide who you want to be and what kind of life you want to live. These choices aren't always big or flashy. Sometimes they're the small, quiet decisions made in private when no one else is watching. But those moments are powerful. They build on each other like bricks, slowly but surely constructing the foundation of your future. That's the power of choice. It's not just about what you do once in a while, but about what you choose to do consistently. When we think of success, it's tempting to look at it as something that happens in a single, defining moment. But success doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from 1,000 small ones. It's forged in the moments when you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over passivity, growth over comfort. Each day is a fresh opportunity to realign your actions with your values. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday. What matters is what you're going to do today. You don't need permission to change. You don't need a perfect plan or the ideal circumstances. What you need is the courage to start. Today can be the beginning of a new chapter, not because something magical happens when the clock strikes midnight, but because you chose to write differently starting now. Every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. Are you casting those votes deliberately, or are you letting life cast them for you? Choice is the most underrated form of power. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you always have the power to choose how you respond. And in that response lies your strength. Do you respond with faith or fear? Do you respond with intention or impulse? The space between stimulus and response is where character is formed. That space is where you rise or remain. And every time you choose wisely in that space, you build integrity, resilience, and clarity. Many people live on autopilot. They wake up, go through their routines, fulfill their responsibilities, and repeat. There's nothing inherently wrong with routine. But if you're not intentional about your choices, your routine becomes a trap. You start existing instead of living. You start surviving instead of thriving. Your choices start making you instead of you making your choices. The moment you wake up to the truth that each day is a blank page, everything changes. You begin to see that your life is not a script handed to you. It's a story you are actively writing. That story is influenced by every decision you make, from how you spend your time, to how you treat others, to how you speak to yourself. Your mindset is a choice. Your attitude is a choice. The company you keep, the habits you maintain, the goals you pursue, all choices. Even choosing not to choose is still a choice. And often, it's the most dangerous one because it gives power to inertia. It says, I'll deal with it later, and one day I'll get around to it. But here's the truth. One day is not a date on the calendar. It's a lie we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. There is no perfect moment coming. There's only now. The sooner you embrace that, the sooner you step into the authority you already have. Every goal you dream of achieving begins with a decision. Not a wish. Not a hope. A decision. The difference between wishing and deciding is action. Wishing waits. Deciding moves. You don't need motivation to get started. You need commitment. Motivation may waver, but commitment grounds you when your feelings fade. It reminds you why you started when everything else tells you to quit. When you take ownership of your choices, you take ownership of your life. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or your past. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you, or for conditions to be just right. You begin to understand that progress is always possible, because choice is always possible. And when you understand that, every setback becomes a setup. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity. You start looking at failure differently, not as a stop sign, but as feedback, a chance to course correct and choose again. You may have made mistakes. We all do. You may have taken wrong turns, missed opportunities, or lived beneath your potential. But none of that disqualifies you from making a different choice today. Your past doesn't have to dictate your future unless you let it. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. You have agency. And the most powerful thing you can do is recognize that your life can look radically different 6 months from now if you start making intentional choices today. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. You won't always choose right. You won't always have clarity. But when you live each day with the awareness that your choices matter, you move with purpose. You become a person of direction, not distraction. You begin to shape your identity not by default, but by design, because who you are becoming is determined by what you consistently choose to do. Every morning when you wake up, you are handed the pen to write a new sentence in the story of your life. That sentence may be simple. I got up early. I worked out. I reached out to someone I care about. I pushed through something hard. But those simple choices, stacked over time, create compound strength. You don't feel it all at once, but keep going long enough. And one day, you'll look back and realize you're not the same person anymore. You chose your way into growth. That's the invitation every day gives you. To choose wisely, to choose bravely, to choose consistently. To show up not just for your goals, but for the person you're becoming in the process. Greatness is not hidden behind one massive leap. It's forged through daily steps in the right direction. And each of those steps is yours to choose.